Real genocides are happening in the world, including giving them Gaza. Literally a ridiculous claim. Making a headline obsessed with the Jews. Microscopic. Based on nothing.
Is Israel like victim of its own success at this point? I really try to keep an open mind. I don't have a dog in the fight in the sense that especially since October 7th, have been becoming more and more interested just by world affairs, by the conflict, by what it entails for the rest of the world as well, Western democracies. Do you want to elaborate on that actually, just for like louder for the people in the back, or just try to explain how simple this conflict is really?
Absolutely. So I'm Jewish. The word Jew comes from the word Judea. Judea is Israel, right? What we call today the West Bank is actually called Judea and Samaria. And the reason they call it the West Bank is because if you call it Judea, then you're basically admitting that Jews are indigenous to this land, which we are. There's not been a day, not a single day in the last 3,000 years where there was not a Jew living in Israel. In fact, the word Palestine, which is so often used today to describe Arabs, Palestine was Israel. And, we have birth certificates of Jews with their birth certificate saying Palestine. Palestine was Israel. And in 1964, an arch terrorist named Yasser Arafat basically took that word Palestine and applied it for the first time in history to Arabs. Now, to be clear, Yasser Arafat was the founder of the Palestinian Liberation Organization. Now, this is 1964. There was no quote unquote occupation. So, which begs the question, what was he liberating? And the answer is Israel. He wanted all of Israel. Yasser Arafat, again, the father of the Palestinians, was from Egypt. So we understand that there is a fabricated nationality / identity here that never existed in the history of the world. There has never been an Arab Palestinian state ever in history. And anybody who doubts that, please kindly tell me when it was established or what the national anthem was, because it never existed. And so you have a group of people who came from Jordan and from Egypt who basically hijacked the word Palestinian, and their charter says loud and clear what they want. They don't want a two-state solution. They don't want to live alongside Israel. They want no Israel. They want dead Jews. Again, this is not an opinion. I haven't stated a single opinion yet. This is all in their charter. And so from the beginning of the quote-unquote Palestinians, that was their mission, to basically annihilate the Jews and to, as they say, from the river to the sea. From the river to the sea is a phrase that everyone's heard. It's time people start looking at a map and realizing what that means. That means all of Israel. And so the whole Western narrative of, well, let's give them a state is kind of actually comical, because you're basically dictating to a people who state loud and clear that they don't want a state, that they do want a state. Please take a state. And they're like, we don't want a state. We don't want to live alongside Israel. And so you have one side here, Israel, that wants to live in peace and has done endless compromises and endless things to achieve that peace, including giving them Gaza. In 2005, you have to understand, we literally ethnically cleansed Gaza from Jews. We took every single Jew out of Gaza, including, by the way, dead bodies. We dug up our dead because we knew what would happen if we left them there, which we saw on October 7th. And so there was not a single Jew in Gaza. We handed them Gaza. And yet, what did they do? Immediately, they burned down the greenhouses and they turned it into a terror state. So Israel has done, the list of things that Israel has given the, again, quote unquote Palestinians in order to achieve peace is endless. They never, as someone once said, they never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. They've said no to it all, including 98% of what they wanted. And so, again, you have Israel on one side that wants to live in peace. You have another, entity on the other side that just wants to kill Israel and wants to kill Jews. And again, this is, this might sound like I'm oversimplifying, but please go read their charter. It's online. You can read it yourself, And so nothing that I'm saying here is, again, opinion. And in 2005, when Israel left Gaza, immediately the Palestinian people, we'll call them the Palestinian people because that's what the world calls them. But again, I have to be very clear. The Palestinian people are the Jews. Today, the Arabs are called Palestinians, so we'll go with that. The Palestinian people immediately elected Hamas, a terrorist organization, to lead them. And they've done, they've led Gaza since then. And everything that we're seeing, is a result of Hamas leading Gaza, attacking Israel unprovoked on October 7th. And, we're seeing a war here between good and evil. And again, the very fact that it seems confusing to anyone is a very clear indication of the disintegration of morality in the West. Because, again, you have one peace-loving people and one terror-loving people. And there really is no nuance here. It's pretty black and white. So that's really the whole thing. And again, Israel will do anything for peace. And Israel has done anything for peace. We have peace treaties with Egypt, peace treaties with Jordan. We have peace treaties with, Dubai and Abu Dhabi, UAE. We want peace. In fact, Judaism, at the very core of Judaism, peace is one of the most important, components or ideals in Judaism. So we want peace. The other side, unfortunately, does not. And so you can't make peace with someone who wants to kill you, right? And that's really where it's at right now. This October 7th massacre is, again, just another example of what their intentions are. They say it loud and clear. And again, the world says, oh, did it really happen? Are you kidding me? Did it really happen? They live streamed it. Like we have HD footage, and the fact that people in the world still say didn't happen. It's ridiculous. And so the answer to your question is, unfortunately, and I say that without sarcasm, you can try to explain the conflict till you're blue in the face, but eventually you're going to hit a brick wall and you're going to say, but why? And the answer is anti-Semitism. It all comes down to anti-Semitism. It's the age-old hatred of the Jews. It's illogical. It's irrational. But that's the reality, and that's been the reality our entire history. And so today that manifests in what the world likes to call anti-Zionism. But again, let's talk facts. 95 to 97% of Jews around the world are Zionists. So if you're saying I'm anti-Zionist, that means I am anti-97% of Jews around the world. I think it's fair to say if you're anti-Zionist, you're anti-Jewish. If you're anti-Jewish, you're anti-Semitic. So that whole artificial differentiation between I'm an anti-Zionist but not an anti-Semite is ridiculous. It's literally a ridiculous claim. So that's where we're at right now. And Israel is unfortunately fighting a war on 7 fronts right now. And, that's what always happens, right? They attack and then all of their, Muslim friends from around the world join in on the fight. And so now Israel's fighting, we have Gaza, we have Judea and Samaria, again, the West Bank, what people call the West Bank. We have Syria, where we're fighting, obviously, Iran, which is the head of the snake. And they're, everything that's going on is because of Iran. They're, the Houthis in Yemen are their proxies. Hamas is their proxy. Hezbollah is their proxy. So again, we have Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, Iran, Iraq, and one more, Yemen. 7 fronts, right? Not to mention the online front. That's a whole different discussion. But Israel's this tiny little country, and people don't realize this because we dominate the news cycle. But, the Jewish people are 0.25% of the global population, and Israel's the size of New Jersey. So let's just put things in perspective here, right? All of the news and it's a simple, explanation here. The world, the global community is obsessed. And I mean that in the most literal sense, obsessed with the Jews. Because even if you take Hamas's ridiculously inflated numbers, they're a terrorist organization. So the fact that anyone quotes them as a reliable source is ridiculous. But let's go with it. Let's say, I believe, Hamas's ridiculous numbers of 45,000 people that, let's double it. Let's triple it. That still is microscopic compared to actual genocides around the world. And no one says a word. Do you understand how many real genocides are happening in the world? Not a word. Doesn't make any headlines. No one's tweeting about it. There are no all eyes on, this genocide. It's all eyes on Rafah because the world's obsessed with Israel. It makes no sense. And all we want is to live in peace. That's it. This isn't an offensive war. It's called Israel Defense Forces. We are in defensive mode. We're trying to live in peace. And they are constantly attacking us. We have never started a war in the history of Israel, but we also have never lost a war. And that will be the same here. We didn't start it, but we will win it.
Yeah, very well said. I'd like to go over, we're talking about confusion and we're talking about the simplicity of the conflict, as you just mentioned, not stating opinions. And I'd really like to go over some words because there is a state of confusion. These people are using from the river to the sea, and you've mentioned that. People will use the word apartheid, and everyone keeps using the same words, the same talking points. And I think vocabulary is so important. So if we could go over just a few of them.
Yeah, listen,
because it seems like the world's upside down, right? Like apartheid. Israel is committing is a state of apartheid.
We have people in Israel's parliament who are anti-Zionist, anti the state of Israel. Arabs in our parliament. What kind of apartheid is that? We have Arabs in entertainment. We have Arabs in the judicial system. We have Arabs in the legislative system. Arabs are an intrinsic part of Israeli society. 1, 2, millions of Arabs live in Israel freely. 3, the Palestinians, the people of Gaza, beg to come into Israel, beg to get work permits to come into Israel. Why do they want to do that? The answer is because they get more freedom in Israel than they get anywhere in any Muslim country. The lie of apartheid is just another blood libel. It's based on nothing. You will not find a single Arab in Israel who will not tell you that he or she has the freedom to move around and to work in Israel. And it's literally a baseless blood libel. That's it. And you mentioned from the river to the sea. From the river to the sea is the state of Israel, right? Let's just say what we say intifada now, or globalize the intifada. What does that even mean? Why don't you, if you're saying globalize the intifada, what does intifada mean? Let me tell you what intifada means. Intifada means suicide bombers in the streets. Because the first intifada and the second intifada, that's what it was. Suicide bombers in the streets of Israel, blowing up buses, blowing up cafes, stabbing innocent people. Let's not confuse, propaganda for facts. And so if someone's on campuses yelling globalize the intifada, what they're doing is they're calling for inciting and calling for the murder and annihilation of Jews. Period. Full stop. There's no other way to interpret that, which, by the way, kind of makes you laugh because it's the same people who are saying globalize the intifada, and in their next breath they're saying ceasefire now. You can't have both. Globalize the intifada is calling for a violent uprising. Ceasefire now, it means let's hold the fires. That's just one of many, many, many intrinsic, internal paradoxes within their narrative. Forget my opinion, forget history, forget everything. You tell me how the same people that are saying that the hostages are being fed well in Gaza are the same people that are saying there's no food in Gaza. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Which one is it? The same anti-Semites who are saying that we invented the Holocaust and it didn't really happen are the same anti-Semites yelling in the streets that Hitler was right and he should have finished the job. You can't have both. So the point is, they lie like they breathe, and their entire narrative is one big fabrication. And so it begs the question, if you actually have a real identity and a real narrative, why do you feel the need to lie all the time? Like Queers for Palestine, do you know what happens to LGBTQ in Gaza? They're thrown off of roofs. This is not my opinion. This is a fact. So if you're Queers for Palestine, I volunteer to buy you a one-way ticket to Gaza. Let's see how they accept you there. And so, again, apartheid, do you know that I cannot drive into any Arab village because there's a big red sign by the entrance of all the Arab villages. If you're Jewish, you can't come in here. That's apartheid. Jews and Arabs live in Israel peacefully. Jaffa is a mixed city. Jews and Arabs live peacefully. There are so many examples of coexistence. So apartheid's BS. From the river to the sea is a call for genocide. And all of these phrases, these catchphrases we see in the West, it's time we opened our eyes or opened the dictionary to understand what they're actually saying, because people don't know what the hell they're talking about.